Hey guys, it's Average Gamer here with a Civilization 5 video. As you can see, I am in the Civilopedia. I'm not going to do a regular video where I make a series. I'm going to just do a one-time video on a question a lot of people ask, which is basically, what civilization should I play? So, I'm basically going to go through all the races here. I'm going to tell you what victory I think they thrive in, where and why they thrive in it, or what victory style is best for each particular race. Because if you want a certain style of play, I'll tell you, okay, this is the victory they're good at, this is why they're good at it, and then I'll move on to the next thing, basically. So we're going to start right in here. First, America. I think America is probably best. Their best victory is Domination, because they have two new unique units that are both fairly powerful. They do thrive Domination in the later game, so they are a mid to late game Domination victory style player. That is when you want to make your biggest moves, take out the most civs in that time period. So that is what America thrives in. Arabia, I would say also is a very Domination heavy thing. The thing about Arabia is they produce massive economy. They are the best economic race there is. So they especially thrive. I've seen a lot of people play the infinite city sprawl method with these guys, which I have a channel video, which is, or it's a series I should say, where I do the infinite city sprawl with the Mayans. It is a lot different though. These guys focus on economy rather than science. So their economy does allow them to do a lot. It allows them to do domination. They can probably pull off diplomatic. Just in general, their economy is massive. So I'd say domination just because they can support a massive military. So that's Arabia. Austria, I'd have to say diplomatic, obviously, because their ability gives them the capability of buying city-states that are allies with them for 500 gold. And I'm pretty sure when you buy them, you get to keep their votes. So you buy a lot of city-states, and then from that point you can just vote away the victory. I don't know, I'm going to say this right now, I do not know if they get to keep the votes for the city-states they take over. If they do not, then I'd say they're still pretty much a diplomatic race. They can do domination, but I'd say no matter what, diplomacy is where they're best. Byzantium is another domination victory style player. They do have that bonus to religion. That is nice, that 6th perk they can get that no one else can. But all in all, they thrive in very early combat, so if you can get out your two main units and go to town and kind of snowball from there, that's kind of where these guys thrive, is an ancient game warfare and then kind of just going from there. Carthage is along the same lines. They're a little later game than Byzantine, but still I'd say domination is where they thrive. They can do diplomacy too. Their biggest advantage in domination is that they can climb over mountains, which is a pain if you're near a lot of mountains. If you're not near a lot of mountains, though, it kind of hinders what the Carthaginians are capable of. But still, I'd say domination is where they're best at. China is a toss-up between domination and science, because these paper makers produce a crapload of science, and they give you gold as well, so you're getting science and gold at the same time, and that gold can be put towards, say, other science buildings. So they can win a science victory, but at the same time, they can get that high science and just use that gold to support a high-tech military. So these guys can play science or domination, both entwined very well, and they can transition between the two very easily. That's why China's one of my more preferred races. Egypt, I don't know as Egypt thrives in a particular style of victory. The most notable thing about them is their capability of producing massive amounts of wonders. So if you like wonders, this is a fantastic race for you to play. I'd say there's no specific victory style you'd have to play with these guys. They do well at domination, obviously, and they can thrive in culture. They can really just do whatever. I would say that their main thing just comes from, you need to know how to utilize wonders to their fullest in order to win any style of victory. England thrives at domination, and they thrive at domination in a naval warfare setting. If you are on a snaky map where there's a lot of ocean, this is the best race to play for naval warfare. bar none. So if you like naval warfare and domination, this is your guy, or girl, I should say. Ethiopia, I would say with Ethiopia, culture victories are their best because they do thrive with 3 to 4 cities. Most of their bonuses come from having a small amount of cities, and culture goes right along with that. On top of that, their special building gives them a direct tie between their culture and their religion. So I think these are definitely culture victory candidates. One of the best. I'd say out of the top 3 civs, I'd say this is, yeah, top 3 for culture victory right here, Ethiopia, in my opinion. France is another domination one. Their domination thrives between the early Renaissance and the late industrial era, where these foreign legion and musketeers are strongest. They get a lot of culture for their cities because of his perk, and all in all, if you can kill a lot of people in that time period, you can basically grab hold of your victory as long as you strike at the right time. Germany is another domination victory. One thing about Germany is they kind of do well in every stage of the game. Ancient era, they can take over barbarians as their units. As you go on later, you can get the Landsknechts, which are 2 for every 1 pikeman, and they're just as strong as pikemen. So you basically have 2 pikemen at the same cost as 1 for every other race. And then going further into panzers, which are one of the strongest tank replacements there are. So all in all, these guys are domination, and they can really thrive at any stage of the game as long as you use those stages correctly. Greece is one of the top 2 or top 3 diplomatic winners. They do have very good early warfare, but their special ability gives them double influence gain and half influence loss. So they can befriend city-states and stay their allies much easier than any other race, which makes them one of the best domination candidates in the game. India is definitely culture. I'd say this is probably, as far as pure culture victory, this is the best race for it. If you're going straight culture, then this race is definitely one of the best to do it with. I prefer Ethiopia only because I find Ethiopia's easier to defend war off with, but if it was a matter of pure culture victories and no worries about war, this is where I would be at because I think this is the fastest culture victory race in the game. Japan is a domination victory and is probably one of the strongest domination victories because of its ability, Bushido, which means every unit you utilize fights as if it was at full health no matter what. So not only do you have these special units that thrive later game or mid to late game, but every unit you have in the game fights as if it was at full health in every fight. So if you're at half health and you're fighting Japan at half health, you will lose. And if you're playing Japan, you will win if you're at half health. So Japan is definitely a very powerful domination race, probably one of the top 3 domination races in the game. Mongolia is another high domination winner. Their biggest thing is that they can take over city-states with great ease. They are strongest when fighting city-states, and you can utilize killing a lot of city-states to build your empire stronger so that you can take on the civilizations. If you fight civs and you time your attacks with these keshiks, you shouldn't lose. You should be very powerful if you can utilize the keshiks and the khans very well. Persia, another race that really doesn't thrive in a particular victory. I would say that their biggest asset is their ability to utilize golden ages. If you like golden ages, this race uses golden ages to their fullest extent. So you should, if you like golden ages, this is your race to kind of look at and see if you would enjoy them. They can play most styles of victory fairly easily. Domination, I think, is probably one of their better ones, but all in all, it's the use of the golden ages. If you can use those golden ages correctly, you can win any victory. Russia, I'd say, thrives in domination because they get a huge production bonus to things they do, and production directly affects how fast you pump out units. So you can just keep throwing units at your enemy and eventually run them over. So Russia, I think, thrives very well in warfare and domination victory play. Siam, again, a race that doesn't thrive in any particular victory. The thing about this race, I'd say, is that out of all the races in the game, they can transition between victories quickly. So if you're like, oh, I was going science, but I would win faster with culture, and then they say, oh, I can win faster if I go diplomatic or domination. These guys can switch between victories without much hassle. If you pick another race and you try to transition, it's a lot harder. These guys are able to do it a little easier because their perks affect every style of victory. So it's like their regular perk is, I think they work well with diplomatic, and their building is good for culture and science, so it's like you can finagle any victory out that you want. Songhai is very similar to that. As far as it's like Siam in that you can transition between victories easily, and you can play culture, you can play domination or diplomatic. They do thrive in domination more, I say, than Siam does. They are good at fighting, but I'd say you can win any style of victory fairly easily with these guys if you do it in the right manner. Spain, I'm going to say Spain is a very heavy domination victory winner. They do have the 2 units that thrive in the mid-game, and their conquistadors allow them to settle cities on continents that aren't on their home continent. So if you're trying to get a foothold on someone's continent, these conquistadors can do it without having to worry about dragging a settler over and escorting it. So that makes these guys that gives these guys a very nice advantage on continent maps with warfare. And so you can put down a city, get your land units over there, and then go to town. Sweden, I don't know a lot about Sweden, but I'd say they're a very good domination victory winner. I don't know when their special units come into play. They do, this one's metallurgy, so one replaces the knight and the other replaces riflemen. So they thrive in that mid-game era. So that's probably, like, mid-game, like medieval, Renaissance, that's kind of where they're at. If you thrive at going to war at that time, these guys probably aren't too bad. Plus, they do well with city-states, so they can win a diplomatic victory as well. But I would say domination and diplomatic are kind of their best 2 victory styles. The Aztecs, I would say just by knowing the history of the Aztecs, I'd say domination because they're very warlike, but they can win culture. If you everything they kill gives them culture. They don't have a particular. I would say they don't have a particular race or victory style they'd have to go for. I would say they can do pretty much whatever they please. I think culture and domination are probably their best 2 avenues, but you can pull off any one with these guys, I would say. The Celts, with the Celts, I would play culture. I actually tried to do an infinite city sprawl method with these guys with a culture victory once, and surprisingly I managed to get it to work, even though culture is terrible when you have a lot of cities. But these guys, culture and religion, work very well, especially religion. These guys are the best religious city. If you spawn near a couple forests, your faith flies, and it makes for a very easy religious win. You can't win with religion, but you can use religion for whatever victory style you're going to go for, and that will just make your game that much better. I do think they thrive better in culture than other victories, but you can pull off any victory with them, as with any race. The Huns are definitely a domination play. Their 2 unique units are very early game, and the battering ram is by far one of the most overpowered units in the game. They can just take out a city in 2 to 3 shots with no issues whatsoever, and they last right up until you get trebuchets in the medieval era. They are just a fantastic race to play. For domination, let me point that out. The Iroquois, again, another one of those races that doesn't thrive in any particular victory. They can do any victory style. I think probably domination would be their best because they do get production bonus. They can move fast through forests, and I don't know. These guys don't really have a particular victory that you have to play by. No race really does. I'm just going. I want to make that clear that none of these races I'm saying they can only win this style of victory. I'm just saying, you know, that's probably the one they do the best with compared to other races. This race doesn't have a particular. It can do any of them with equal ability. The Mayans, I'm going to say, just because I play the Mayans a lot, that the Mayans thrive in science victories because these pyramids give them +2 science in every city. If you do an infinite city sprawl like I did in one of my videos, you should have no problem winning a science victory. You can get up to like 6,000 science per turn if you really haul. And I'd say science is where these guys are at. They can do military and other stuff, obviously, but I think these guys are more science victory oriented. The Netherlands are another one that really doesn't have a specific victory style. Their polders are really nice. It gives them +3 food, which gives them the capability to make really big cities. So I guess they could do culture. They could do domination like any other race can. Another race that I'm really not that sure of that could probably pull off whatever victory you want to try, as long as you can utilize their particular perks to their fullest. One thing that's nice about them is they do get to keep 50% of the happiness if they sell their last luxury resource of a style. So that means if you have 1 wine and you give away that 1 wine, you still get 2 happiness instead of the... You don't get to keep the 4, but you still get to keep 2, which most races do not. The Ottomans, again, another one of those domination victory style games. They do thrive, I'd say, in mid-game. If I'm not mistaken, that medieval Renaissance era is where they're best. They do also have a fairly decent naval capability, not so much their units, but they can support a massive navy. So they probably balance air and sea the best out of all the races, but they are another domination style player. So I've gone through all the races here, giving you a brief synopsis of what they are best at and why they are best at it. Obviously, this isn't meant to be a massively informative thing. My main purpose here is that if you're starting your search on what race you should play, this gives you an idea of what victories they're good at, what their specialties are, and it can kind of narrow down your search. If you say, alright, well, I did want diplomatic victory, so Greece and Austria are a good place to start. It kind of just gives you a starting point to kind of jump into more in-depth research. This isn't meant to be a really, really big discussion video. I don't know enough about every race. I do know enough about a couple of them to probably tell you if you wanted to play them or not. But all in all, that is this video. If you have any questions, maybe there's something you're wondering about a particular race that maybe I can clarify, do leave a comment. If you know more about a particular race than what I said, do leave a comment as well. As long as it's polite and just being informative, I am okay with it being there. And then, if you found this at least somewhat helpful, please like and subscribe, and so I can keep making videos of this type. And, as always, I will see you in my next video.